Welcome back for our 5th episode on the Algerian Revolution on my channel, Rebels and Revolutions. Today, we will conclude this fascinating series, though I must say that it continues to echo even in today's world. With its brilliant Charles offensive, the army succeeded by effectively winning the military struggle, but the methods they used to achieve this victory, such as widespread use of torture, collective responsibility, and resettlement of entire villages into essentially concentration camps, have brought this conflict into focus, both domestically and internationally. The army was worried that their victories against the FLN would be wasted should the French government in Paris become too weak and sue for peace. They did have one hope: the return of General de Gaulle, the strong man they hoped would help to save them in Algeria. To achieve this goal, the army was prepared to stage an insurrection, and even took over Corsica, preparing to go to mainland France should de Gaulle not be approved by the French Parliament. Luckily, de Gaulle was approved on May 29th of 1958, and immediately went to Algeria. With his famous cry, "Vive l'Algérie française," he raised hopes of the Pied Noirs and the military. Soon, both would realize that their hopes that de Gaulle could were sorely misplaced. De Gaulle was a very experienced politician, and he fully realized that the majority of Algerians wanted to be independent from France. In de Gaulle's mind, the question was no longer if Algeria would become independent, but when and how. In September 1959, de Gaulle made his thoughts known to the world in his famous self-determination speech, turning a large segment of army and Pied Noir into his bitter enemies. The more extreme of the Pied Noir, ultras, staged an insurrection on January 24th, 1960, an event that became known as the Week of Barricades. They were hoping for a widespread support of the army, but got very little of it, with the insurrection collapsing completely after one of General de Gaulle's most moving speeches, and perhaps his best, in which he appealed directly to his countrymen in order to limit the spread of the rebellion. One of its leaders, Pierre Lagaillard, fled to Spain, where, with the support of General Raoul Salan, he created the organization Armée Secrète, Secret Army Organization, or OAS. From this point, the OAS effectively created a revolution within a revolution, fighting Muslim Algerians as well as French authority in the name of l'Algérie française. Motivations of this uneasy alliance of ultra-Pied Noir who were unwilling to give up their homes and the military that felt betrayed after almost winning the struggle is understandable. Their tactics, which included assassination, acts of terror, and psychological warfare, are a very different matter. Their goal was to retain a small part of Algeria where French citizens could continue to exist. Yet their extreme actions killed any hopes of Pied Noir remaining in Algeria after the war was over. While many in France initially supported the OAS's cause, their methods of terror slowly turned French opinion against them, while superior FLN forces were able to slowly push them out of Algeria. In January of 1961, de Gaulle initiated the first referendum on self-determination, resulting in 75% of the voters in France and Algeria approving of de Gaulle's plan. Negotiations with the FLN had begun. And here's something that I cannot understand. Why did de Gaulle restrain and eventually completely cease military actions as the negotiations with the FLN were drawing close? Clearly, if Algeria were to be independent, there was little sense in wasting lives fighting with the FLN. Yet, by keeping military pressure, France could have saved the European community, as well as obtained the much-desired Sahara region with its precious oil reserves. In contrast, by relaxing the military pressure on the FLN, France allowed it to rise up from the ashes under a strong leadership of Boumediene, who eventually became the president of Algeria in July of 1965, as a result of yet another coup d'etat against his fellow FLN leaders and the first president of independent Algeria, Ahmed Ben Bella. This newly reconstituted FLN army was now generously equipped with Soviet bloc weapons. Unlike many political leaders of the FLN, Boumedienne had strong communist leanings, thus considerably strengthening the FLN's negotiation position at peace talks. The Evian Agreement of March 18, 1962, and the ceasefire they instituted ended the war between the French army and the Algerian National Liberation Front, and began a transitional period, which ended with the referendum of self-determination on July 1, 1962. The resounding yes vote led to the transfer of sovereignty from the French to the Algerian authorities on July 3rd, and the official celebration of independence on July 5th. And while this is not the end of the revolutionary story, I will have to draw the line somewhere, as my goal was to examine the forces and the circumstances that started it all. Sadly, as French soldiers and the vast majority of Pieds Noirs were exiting Algeria, they were defiantly singing the recently released song by Edith Piaf called No Regrets. Allegedly, Piaf dedicated her recording of this song to the Foreign Legion. Yet, just as this song was not an accurate reflection of Edith Piaf's own state of the world, it did not ring true for either the French soldiers, Pieds Noirs, nor the Harkis, Algerians who remained loyal to France yet were shamelessly abandoned by it in Algeria. It was certainly not true for General de Gaulle, and soon for many Algerians who went through some turbulent times. But this is a very different story. I cannot thank you enough for being with me during these 5 episodes. After finishing them, I realized that I missed so many important events in this story. I know that this topic still touches many people very deeply, and I want to apologize if my omissions or inadequate coverage of many important events offended any of my viewers. My real goal was to introduce these events to those less familiar with this story and focus on the reasons for this conflict. Thank you so much. Please like us, subscribe, and return to my channel, Rebels and Revolutions.